Buon pomeriggio a tutti e ben ritrovati in questa sessione plenaria dopo tutte le sessioni parallele di questa giornata davvero molto intensa che spero sia piaciuta a tutti quanti, ma certamente con tantissimi stimoli. Noi abbiamo pensato anche quest'anno di dare una visione internazionale, quindi vedrei, come dire, saranno presenti anche le ospiti internazionali, quindi da ora in poi diciamo parleremo in inglese. Sono presenti 3 persone di livello assolutamente importante, moderate da Joaquim Bretcha, ma io direi in questo momento possiamo shiftare in inglese. So, as I was saying, now we will go on in English. We have this very important plenary session. It will be moderated by Joaquim Bretcha. You, everybody know him, I'm sure. He's the president of ESOMAR. And he will moderate and he will have a talk with 3 very important people from UK, Germany, and France. And they are very important. Their perspective is also very important because they are at the top, they are the head of the association of each of them, of each of their country. So we have Jane Frost from MRS UK, we have Maurice Ndiaye from ADETEM France, and we have Bernd Wachter from ADETEM Germany. So, Joachim, now it's your turn, and I leave you the stage to you and all your guests. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Grazie Tommaso, viviamo strani giorni, come dice Franco Battiato, e congratulazioni per l'alta qualità di questo event, l'ho visto un po' e di alta qualità. So, as Franco Battiato says, these are strange days, strani giorni. Since the impact of COVID in March, we have all gone through different stages of emotions, as well as the economy. This economy is experiencing an unprecedented evolution in a very short period of time. Europe, in its rich and amazing diversity, has shown with this episode different outcomes of the first wave, and we are just in the middle of the second one with different expectations per country. In the last ESOMAR's industry report released 6 weeks ago, based on surveys to national associations and our membership, the expectation for the end of 2020 showed some differences among countries. So while the overall Europe expectation is a decrease of the industry's turnover of 15.8, so 16%, we have the UK with a minus 15%, for instance, and an expected recovery in Q2 2021, Italy minus 3.5%, an expected recovery in Q2 2021 as well, Germany, a drop of 20%, Spain as well, 20%, and expecting to recover in Q1 2021, or the Netherlands expects a decrease of 50% and an expected recovery in Q4 2021. The whole world is expected to decrease by 25% of the turnover and dragged down by the US with 30%, and the big countries in Europe and Japan with 20%. So these are all expectations that our members and national associations around the globe have shared for this report. In this context, the understanding of people's behavior, values, and preferences needs to be updated. Therefore, we as the data and insights professionals have the great responsibility of helping our societies, institutions, companies, and brands to navigate through this unknown world. Moreover, our mission is to ensure that our adaptation to the speed the market demands is made following all our standards of quality, rigor, reliability, and respect for people's privacy. This crisis has accelerated many of the changes that were already transforming our societies and profession, from the digitization of our lives, and therefore our capability to collect data, to working from home. And now, after 8 extremely intense months in our lives, in our jobs, we can have some visibility of where we are and what we can foresee. And this is what we are going to talk about in this debate. So for me, it's a real pleasure to be moderating this debate with these three excellent people we have. So let's start with the first question. Jane, I will ask you, how is our industry in the UK, and then for the rest in your every country, how is the industry coping with this context in the UK? We have seen some expectations per country. This is an average. Can you give us some nuances that help us having a better perspective on the health of your industry, your country, and how you are seeing it evolving?
Thank you, Joaquim. And can I just say it's a huge pleasure and honor to be with you today. I am so sorry that my Italian is even worse than my Greek, so I can't be speaking to you in Italian. It's important to know that the UK sector is worth about £5 billion. It's the second biggest sector worldwide and the biggest sector per capita. And therefore what impacts us, a bit like the Americans, is going to have a really devastating impact on the worldwide totals. Also important to remember that the sector in the UK is made up about 75% of the companies are small and micro businesses. This means that they are under 6 people. And of course, they have been really, really badly hit by the fact that they have very little cash to fall back on. And many of these businesses are the ones that will go out of trading, they will stop trading, or they will retire. People founding them will retire because they tend to be people who've made choices and come out of big sector businesses and are reaching that age. Face-to-face work in the UK stopped completely the minute we went into the first lockdown. And that is a significant part of the UK business. It is important to say, and I don't think we get enough credit as a sector, that in the UK, our largest agencies, the ones with good random probability capabilities, that's the Ipsoses and the Cantars, are the ones who've been conducting the very difficult research into COVID with the government and people like Imperial University. So we haven't stopped working. And in fact, some of the most important data in the UK comes from those companies. So, devastating picture in many ways, slowly recovering now. We are seeing some growth, particularly in international orders. But it's important to realise that this is, may I say, a spotty picture. Because in our clients, the big clients like GlaxoSmithKline, like Reckitt Benckiser, who are actually in the cleaning business or the medicine business, are seeing quite considerable growth. And so they are actually building their teams and they are spending more. Tesco and BT, that's a big retailer and a big telco, have actually found themselves on the top table for the first time, talking to the C-suite on a regular basis. And I believe, Joaquim, this goes to your point, which is that this has had a devastating impact, but there has been opportunity as well as downturn. And I think there is an opportunity for us to play into that fear and that lack of understanding of the consumer that is really driving a lot of the big corporates in the UK. We've done some work called Fast Forwarding Research from the Delphi Group, which is client and agency based, and that's available for anyone to read.
Thank you, Jane. What about you, Maurice? What about in France?
Well, I think, first, thanks for the invitation. Of course, we had similar, phenomenon here in France when regarding looking at the hit that was generated by the outbreak. I mean, for many reasons. One of the reasons that you can't perform face-to-face interview anymore, for example. Second kind of reason is also the fact that on the client side, some industries were just frozen, and the lockdown. Specifically during the first lockdown, like literally the whole economy was frozen, and then you had entire streams of production that were closed. So there was pretty much no client to interact with. And then there's the budget freeze that also was in place subsequently. So there was a very, very strong hit for first, second, and third quarter. And even I think there were some market research companies that didn't survive. I don't know if you know BVA. They're in pretty bad shape now. They're struggling to try to find a new solution and relaunch the activity, but they took a very, very dramatic hit. So a few things that I can share. I think something which is obvious is that the companies that can rely on a larger share of digital solutions are more resilient, for sure. And this is true for market research, as it's true for pretty much all industries, actually. So whenever you have a business model and a business and revenue stream, which is relying on, I don't know, say like more than 50% on digital tools, then it's easier, of course, to be resilient than if you have only 10% of your business which is relying on digital. That's the first thing. Second thing, which is also I think is positive, is I see a lot of animation, I would say, on the client side, because I think that all industries and all companies are realizing that they have to do something. They just, now that they've been hit and kind of again frozen by the outbreak and surprised by what was happening. I think now everybody's like, okay, we have to do something. We don't necessarily know what, but we have to do something. And I'm really convinced that the industry, our industry, has a role to play by paving the way towards towards a better understanding of what happened in the past month, because it went so fast. So I think many industries, they didn't realize, and they still can't figure out what exactly happened in terms of consumers' behaviors and shifts. But I see also a lot of attention looking forward. Like, is this category going to be resilient? Is this phenomenon that I'm looking at, is this just a peak, or is it going to stick? The question of the stickiness is really, really critical in many discussions that we can have across different industries, different clients. So I think digital is one answer, and also there are briefs, and I'm sure we will see a lot of reorganization, and again a lot of investments on projects that are aiming at looking over the next 18 months until the next three years. Even though there still is a high volatility, which is very, very difficult to handle, I think, both for companies and market research suppliers.
Thanks, merci, Maurice. What about Germany, Bernd?
Well, I guess it's not too surprising that it's a lot similar. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I guess it's not too surprising that there's a lot of similarities to France and the UK, because it's a global thing that's going on. I agree with Maurice that there will be a lot of research to be done because of the shift of consumer behavior, motives, and so on. And my question is whether the industry will have the budgets in the next year to really cover this research need. Germany in particular is, of course, hit by the big minus from the automotive industry. Automotive industry, or research for the automotive industry, is always a big share of our research revenue in the market. And there is really a strong minus of like 50% or so, in particular as they do a lot of international research, and this stopped pretty early. But still, I have the impression that there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel. The first lockdown was really like a total frozen time. But now we have a similar situation, but the companies are better prepared. The people can easier be reached. The family infrastructure is better organized, so things are going forward. And we made a research among our members. 3 waves, meanwhile, one after every quarter. And while in April, 4 out of 5 companies expected a drop in revenue, while meanwhile 1 out of 4 is expecting even an increase. And the figure you mentioned, Joaquim, 20% minus, I guess, and I hope it will be not as much. I think this was an early figure. Maybe we will come to 15 or 17%, which is still not good, but better than minus 20s, obviously. I'm a bit optimistic that things will recover. though the second lockdown.
Good, thank you, Bernd. What about trends? I mean, Maurice was already talking about some trends you are seeing and the importance of the stickiness and the relevance of volatility that will be missed. So how is it going to impact our industry? What are the trends that you are seeing? And maybe if we can see a little bit longer in the 2 years' time, what are the challenges that we are facing as industry, as the ecosystem, so from agencies to suppliers to all sorts of companies related into this big insights, customer understanding world. So what are the trends that you're seeing? How do you see that the shape of the industry is going to evolve and the market composition?
Well, whoever...
sorry, it's a question for Maurice. Let's
okay.
Let's start with Maurice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, so in terms of, I think, of course, like in any crisis, there will be some consolidation at some point. So you will see some acquisitions, you will see some mergers across the board. I think it was this dynamic already started even before the crisis, where with all the wave of tech companies that are entering the market research playground. You think of Qualtrics, for example, or that was acquired by SAP, which I think is a very, very strong signal, because SAP doesn't come at all from market research. So I think there still will be those kinds of operations across different players. I think it's too early to say. But the other thing I think which is more interesting in terms of methodologies is that more likely than not, there still will be a long period of time over which consumers' behaviors will be unstable. So I think the way you want to track consumer behaviors will probably be challenged, and all the traditional methodologies that were barometers, like very classical barometers or ways of gathering, collecting, analyzing the pulse of opinion or the pulse of consumption may need to be revamped to some extent. First, because I think the touch point will be much different, and also because the volatility and I would say the rhythm of the evolution of the consumption patterns maybe I think really different from what we've seen before. So we're entering kind of a new norm, a new world in many ways, and I think it will be really interesting to look at how market research company will be able to innovate in the answers and the protocols they can bring on the table to meet those new challenges.
Bernd, I just stopped you from your initial response. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I did not understand Maurice too good, so it might be that I just repetitive whatever I'm saying now, and I hope that you can hear me better. But there's some background noise. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess when we talk about trends in the market research market, what will come in the next 2-3 years, whatever, will be more or less the same that we saw before Corona already, because Corona did not really change the play. It just accelerated, as you mentioned earlier, certain phenomena, I guess, like big data partially substituting survey data, for example, and other things that really have been accelerated by the Corona situation will remain. So I'm strongly expecting that digitalization also of processes will stay and even be more than we had before, including automation, which has an influence on our industry, obviously, including, for example, the possibility to make market research on your own, from home, do it yourself, whatsoever. So agencies have to prove their need and their value for money. We will, of course, further have a digitalization of methods also in qualitative research. Many things that have been done face-to-face before, IDIs, group discussions, are now done online, and many of them will stay online, not all, but many, because it has advantages, and of course downsides too. So we will see a back to old normal, but not in any aspect, not in every aspect.
Okay, what about you, Jane? What are your thoughts?
It's really important to think about this in terms of where the client is. And the client in this period has been able to reuse, repurpose and reimagine its own internal and existing data, and has quite enjoyed doing so, but still wants help in order to integrate the data, in order to integrate its own internal data with external and ad hoc data. And I think there's a real opportunity for us to get together and make our customers, our clients, real heroes here. And I wouldn't disagree with whatever Bernd and Maurice has said at all, and I don't want to repeat it. So I want to add maybe two important issues. There have been data breaks, so that a lot of clients have been able to take the risk of stopping the traditional way they're doing things and starting again. But the other thing that COVID has meant is that there is a real interest in ethics and principles and purpose behind what they do. They are very, very worried, clients, about public perceptions, and what they do now may well have a negative impact later on, and probably will. So there's a real demand for understanding what the supply chain is delivering in terms of the ethics and the behaviour of the way we gather data. So I think that's really important and needs to be faced up to. And I think the other thing that we ought to think about is the impact of the Black Lives Matter movement as part of that. Because it is becoming quite clear that some of the more traditional ways of gathering data have resulted in an underrepresentation of ethnic minorities in particular in research and insight. And so one of the things we are doing is working with both clients and our accredited companies to work out what sort of advice we should be giving on improving access to harder to reach communities. Now, if you think about the more of the reliance on digital and online, obviously panel companies in themselves have potentially got a problem in this area. So we need to address how these are handled, which may, of course, give another opportunity as a balance to qualitative research to balance out some of the issues to do with panel reach. So I do think those are two major trends that we need to be important thinking about, but also think about agility, because that is what the client is demanding of their suppliers, and that doesn't mean speed. Our clients are very, very clear. It means partnerships, it means creativity, it means new ways of thinking, it means actually building partnerships instead of transactional relationships. And I'm hearing this from everyone, from the telco sector to the fast-moving consumer goods sector. So there is a real need for us to address this. And it's not been something that has just been demanded during COVID. It's been something that's been demanded for a long time, but COVID has exacerbated every single thing that was happening before and put it on speed, if you like. So everything that was happening before will get more so, but actually I think we have more opportunities, like the one I just referred to.
Thanks, Jen. You bring very interesting points. Although I think from my experience that the UK is a very particular capital of insights. So you as you always say, it's the largest one as a central location, if you want, and multinational. So many trends happening in the UK on many occasions take some time to travel to the rest of countries. You talk about agility in this last moment. I'm glad that you mentioned agility and you complement the understanding of agility, because I think that for too much time, people were equaling agility to only speed and cost, when this is just a small portion of it. Agility means many more other things than just cost and speed. And indeed, sometimes cannot be directly speed. Maybe speed is not the key factor in the equation. So, Maurice, from those factors that Jane has been talking about, ethics principles, which I understand is extremely, it's extremely important. And from ESOMAR, we are always talking about this subject, of this topic. Do you see that in France, there is this need of really having a clear view on how ethically suppliers are treating data in the end client, on the end client side, for instance?
And unfortunately, no. I think the maturity of clients is very low still, even after the GDPR and everything. Even though I clearly separate privacy and ethics, which is larger. I think ethics, you can be legal but unethical. But still, I think there's still a lot of two things. The first, there's still a lot of teaching, I would say, to conduct towards those different stakeholders, because I think there's a lack of knowledge. When I look at marketing professionals on the client side, they just use the data and they ask some questions. But I still receive sometimes Excel spreadsheets with credit card numbers. They just don't know, and they think that because the file is locked with a password, then it's okay. So there's a huge confusion about how just what are the best practices. I think there's still a real large gap to be filled. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that I think also that even when they know about it, the pressure for performance is so high that it's not that easy to be ethical when you have the feeling that you're constantly running after to catch up with competitors. When you have your boss that enters your office and asks for increased performance, so maybe sometimes they just also turn a blind eye to those issues, just because they feel that it's more an obstacle than anything else. And I think that in some cases you can definitely see that they just work under the radar, and they say, okay, let's not talk about let's not bring the legal teams in the loop, because it's going to be really, really complicated, and let's not bring the IT guys in the loop because it's going to take ages. And I need to deliver fast because the Comex or XCOM or whatever asked me, or because I have this product launch or this campaign and I need the answer now. So let's do this, just you and me, and that's fine. So and it also puts, I think, some pressure on the suppliers themselves, because sometimes you're just kind of in between fires, and you don't want to engage in an unethical or illegal project or practice, but then when it's a big client of yours who asked for this, it can be really tricky. So yeah, so my answer is that some people don't know. I wouldn't be able to size what I'm talking about here in terms of share of professionals, but I think there's a huge lack of maturity, and it's a majority of people, I think. And the second is, in some cases, it's also deliberately unethical for others under the pressure of the top management.
Okay, so now if we travel to Germany, and particularly to Bernd, that has been a very, very strong advocate on GDPR and on ethical and so on, I assume that Germany would see another picture, no?
Another picture, I don't know. I agree with Maurice saying as partially a lack of knowledge on client side about limitations, legal limitations, but also about legal privileges our industry has also in GDPR actually does have. And when legal comes into play, things might become more difficult. I think what is really important, and what we always stressed in Germany, is that we are doing scientific research. Our work is scientific, which actually always brought the privileges in Germany, was the foundation for the privileges in Germany, but is also in GDPR. So this is a very important point, and we have to stress this. And the other basics of our profession anyway, like anonymity and so on. But I think we have to stress the scientific approach of our work. And this brings us to privileges, and we have to use it. And everybody has to be aware of it, not just about the limitation, because GDPR is not just limiting and making our work more difficult. It also brings legal security and options.
And now you mentioned about, I mean, you were talking about the training, education, the preparation of professionals. We see that the industry is evolving. There are many challenges and changes. What would be, according to you, what will be your advice to professionals in the industry, today current professionals? How do you think they should be preparing themselves for the exchange? What would be the skills and the subjects or the topics that professionals that are currently working in our sector should be working on to be well adapted to these changes that are now happening? Jane, I know you work very, very strongly the training side in the UK. What are you prioritizing?
Yes, we've done some work with clients about what skills they're requiring. And I think there are about 4 that always emerge. The first is data numeracy. And they want that alive, though, with an ability to tell a story. And this is seen as a considerable lack. So it's telling stories is important. The third is that they want an awareness of the business issues of the client, so that we're not selling the client stuff that the client can't possibly do. And the fourth is they want some creativity to go with that. They do talk about agility and creativity going together. So what I think the sweet spot is for any new or aspiring talent in this sector is to actually be data numerate and to have a good ability to narrate. Because I know so many who tell a good story but don't understand the numbers, and so many who are great at numbers but actually can't tell a story. But the sweet spot is where those two things intersect. And I think that there are so many people looking for numerate analysts that can tell narrative that it's a job growth area. So I would encourage people to look at that as a combined skill set.
And what about you, Maurice? You come from the technology side. What would be your advice to people working in the industry?
I totally agree with what Jane is saying. I think what we need to really uphold as a principle is the complementarity between tech and human intelligence. And I think in the past days, and it's in the past weeks and years, software companies have put a lot of pressure and have been maybe over promising to some extent and say, okay, you just press this button and something magical will happen and you will find all insights. And you don't need, people anymore. And you can do it yourself, et cetera, et cetera. I really don't think this is the right way to go. We must not go down this road. I mean, technology is really powerful, but it will not replace human intelligence to ask the right questions, to challenge some methodologies and some results, to bring some business expertise and perspective. So storytelling, I agree, is really important. And also, I think it's critical to have people that are able to challenge technology. So it doesn't mean that you need to be able to code, but just to realize and understand when people are bullshitting you, basically, because there's a lot of bullshit in the tech industry, and it's important to have people that are the right reference or understanding of basics, just to be able to ask the right question, and again to kind of assess the robustness of a specific software or tool or methodology. I think this is going to be critical, combined with storytelling. So it's two very separate skills, and it's another challenge to find people that have both.
Yeah, and technology has been idealized for a very long time, and we have thought that technology was objective and not the means, and sometimes it has distracted our real objective. So Bernd, you were emphasizing the scientific approach to what we do. I tell you, in the ESOMAR, we're having now discussions about understanding the whole community, and this scientific approach is questioned for many people. So what would be your advice as well, from your perspective, to people working in the industry on the skills that we should be evolving, we should be developing and incorporating in our skill set?
I think what we really have to do is train our people and on client side about the legal possibilities, and maybe develop papers, white papers, and so on, and get into talks with our client side of the legal unit, because this is just the base of what we're doing. And when I have a look to Italy, where, according to my knowledge, market research is considered as in context of GDPR as direct marketing, limiting the possibilities. This is, I think, a threat for the market, and we have to prevent this. So what we have to do is inform and give our standpoint to our clients, to politicians, and so on, to make very clear that we are not doing direct marketing, that we are doing a scientific work, and we need the principles and the privileges that we have from legal.
Okay, we're heading to the final 5 minutes. So we have a last question, which is, how are your national associations adapting to this super fast evolution of everything? Because as I was telling before, I mean, working from home is also a revolution for us as industry, for ourselves. So how are you adapting from a national association's perspective to the needs of your members and the industry?
It's a good question. I think we're probably unique, Joaquim, as you know, in being the regulator in the UK. So I don't think the other national associations have that, which is actually quite a useful thing to be. We've spent a lot of time interpreting the law regarding lockdowns for our members, which has been quite important, because some clients did not want to stop face-to-face research, and it was only because we issued professional guidance under the code that the agencies were able to stop up on that basis. But basically, I took 30 people and pivoted them to be all online. And I have to say, every single event has been online. We've turned on a euro, not a sixpence. We turned on a euro, and I would credit my people with the most fantastic hard work. I think the issue that we're all going to face is that this second wave, it's less easy to emotionally cope with the blows that are coming at us, because the first wave was different. The second wave seems like it's very difficult to get out of. But we've done something called a Flex Forum, so we're very much encouraging people to sign up to new ways of working flexibly, and that has been very popular. So our membership, both corporate and individual, is holding up very well, as is our training, because we've been able to deliver it in a way that people have needed. So I'm not going to kid you, it's going to be very difficult. We've all taken pay cuts. We should share the pain, and we are sharing the pain. But I do think it's been a chance to prove to our members that their professional association is worth the money that they pay. I hope. Anyway.
What about in France, Maurice? What about your ADETEM?
So, of course, well, it was really really interesting, I would say, what happened, because when we took the presidency last June, it was the middle of the crisis, but we already had a program of rethinking both the value proposition itself, so the offer, and also to change the channels and the business model. So we already had in mind the idea of going much more digital, and also changing. I think the real challenge is the business model. So turning digital is part of the answer, because you had no choice. So now we've learned to go through these kind of events, and I think we're learning, and now everybody's getting used to it. So I think it's really going and turning into our as a habit, and people are okay with this. Whereas before, I think last year, it was really complicated to have those remote calls in France. You know, people just hate this. They want to feel, they want to touch, they want to shake hands. I think now everybody's okay with this, but I think the real challenge is in business model, because one thing that the lockdown brought was free content. And I think one of the main challenge for us as associations is that if our value proposition was based on providing very, very sophisticated and enriched content, then it's less of a differentiator now. So we really need to reinvent how we get some revenues, and how we manage to have a sustainable business in a world of freemium and free content.
What about you, Bernd? You're on mute, Bernd. Now you're okay.
I'm not. Okay,
yeah,
should be okay.
Yeah.
At ADEM, we started already 2 or 3 years ago thinking about the future and about the positioning of our association in the market. Traditionally coming from surveys-based market research, and the world is changing, has been changing, and still is changing, and might be changing faster due to the COVID situation. So we are opening up, and we are redefining our understanding of market research, changing the statutes, being open for more and different providers, not only survey-based market research providers, but also those who are doing data analytics and so on. We changed our status, as said before. We are now welcoming software providers who provide dedicated software for market research, for example, and try to broaden our membership base. And actually, even in this difficult year, we are winning more members than we are losing, so that's good. We are better representing the total market, and of course we are sharing the membership fee or the budget of our association among more people, and not just a handful, so to say, which obviously helps us. Well, these are activities we are taking and started already before COVID, because I think it makes sense.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Bernd. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Maurice, for your time. I hope we have given some hints to the Italian audience about what's happening in your countries, the challenges we face, and how you're adapting. I see Matteo just ready for the stage, and before that, I want to thank you, Matteo, for giving us the opportunity to share our point of view with you and with the Italian community. I always believe that these sort of exchanges are needed. We need to create community, and there is nothing better in this moment than creating community with quality and with such events. We lack meeting one to the other, meeting one each other, face-to-face meetings. We really miss that. So we have to compensate it in these sort of meetings. Thank you so much, Bernd, Jane, Maurice. I hope the Italian audience have enjoyed this discussion, this debate, and I leave you now with Matteo. Thank you, Matteo. Grazie.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joaquim, and thank you also to Jane, Maurice, and Bernd. You know that I fully agree with you. We should share much more information than now. So I'm going to switch in Italian. Ora, grazie a tutti. Noi siamo giunti alla conclusione anche di questa seconda plenaria. Gli stand dei nostri sponsor rimarranno attivi fino alle ore 19, quindi c'è ancora tempo per interagire con loro. Grazie a voi tutti e a tutti i colleghi che sono intervenuti nel corso di questa giornata. L'augurio è che durante i lavori abbiate raccolto stimoli, insight utili per la vostra azienda, utili per trovare delle soluzioni che ci aiutino ad trovare delle nuove vie per uscire da questa complessità. Stiamo ovviamente tutti lavorando per costruire le aziende della next generation, aziende resilienti, aziende flessibili, in grado di generare, come dicevamo questa mattina, un'innovazione sensibile e sostenibile in tempi ragionevoli, per soddisfare le nuove esigenze di tutti i consumatori, che si tratti di B2C o che si tratti di B2B. Come diceva qualche interlocutore questa mattina, dobbiamo anche essere disposti a rimettere in discussione le nostre convinzioni, dobbiamo essere disposti ad intensificare la frequenza con la quale analizziamo i fenomeni, perché i cambiamenti che stiamo vivendo sono veramente cambiamenti molto molto veloci e molto molto rapidi. Io, nel salutarvi e nel ringraziarvi, definitivamente vi do 2 appuntamenti. Il primo è l'anno prossimo, in novembre, per il Marketing Research Forum 2021, che ci auguriamo tutti caldamente che possa essere di persona. Così saremo anche un pochino più rilassati e potremo scambiare anche 4 chiacchiere in tranquillità. Il secondo, già a partire dal primo quarter dell'anno 2021, è con altri eventi che Assirm organizzerà. Saranno eventi verticali, eventi dedicati a specifiche industrie o a specifiche tematiche. Grazie a voi tutti per essere stati con noi, siete stati moltissimi, a presto e teniamo duro facendo sistema. Grazie a tutti.